Alright guys, I'm getting ready to build a new pen here, and the lumber that I'm going to use for this is going to be 1x6 decking boards. And the reason I'm going to try it this way is because I've got some pens around back that I bought off of a gentleman that went out of business several years ago, and he built his out of 1x6 decking boards, and they're still in good shape, and they're almost twice as old as some of the dome pins that I've had to replace the bottoms on. Like some of my dome pins, the bottoms are nearly rotted away already, but the 1x6 decking, the pins made out of the 1x6 decking boards that is a lot older than the dome pins are still in really good shape. And I thought might as well try it. I ain't never built any pins out of 1x6 decking board. I probably never would have thought to build them out of that, but since I've owned some that's built out of that, and they've held up really well, and they've outlasted the newer pins that I built out of 2x4s, I figured I might as well go ahead and do it and give it a shot on this new pen that I'm going to build. And I'm probably going to build this new pen 4x4x3. It'll be 4 foot long, 4 foot wide, and 3 foot tall. And I've noticed I've got several of them around back that's built that way, and I've noticed the ones that are built that way, when it rains, they don't seem to get as wet inside as the ones 4 foot tall. And I guess a lot of it's got to do that they set lower to the ground. So, you know, when the wind's blowing, I guess they don't get so much rain then on them. But also, I'm going to build this out of 12 gauge wire. And in this video, I won't be using no brace, because it's a lot thicker and a lot more sturdy than the 14 gauge wire that I used on the previous pen. And the 12 gauge wire that I got is, I got some that's 3 foot tall, and I got some that's 4 foot tall that will make the 4 foot wide overlap, and then the 3 foot tall stuff will be for the front and the back. So it'll work out good that way, and I can finish using up the rest of my 3 foot stuff. Alright guys, you're going to need about 17 feet of wire to make this pen, and you're going to need one piece of 4 foot tall wire, 9 feet long, that's going to be for your overlap to give it your dome effect. And then you're going to need a piece of 4 foot long, 3 foot tall for your front, and another piece of 4 foot long, 3 foot tall for your back. So you're going to need 17 feet of wire altogether. Now, when I build these dome pens, I shorten my piece for the overlap a little bit, and I actually use 8 foot and 9 inches. It gives it more of a rounder dome effect. Alright guys, I got my frame together. Again, this is the lumber is 1x6, and I just want to point something out, that if you use the 1x6 for a frame, your measurements are going to be slightly different. See, on using 2x4s for a 4x4 frame, you cut you 2 45-inch pieces and 2 48-inch pieces. Well, on the 1x6, your inside piece is going to be 46 inches long. This will be 46, this piece right here, and then your back piece is 48. And then over here, 46, and down here, 48. You put your 46s in between your 48s, and when you nail them together, you got you a perfect 4x4 frame. since this is thinner stuff, your measurements are slightly different than what it would be on a 2x4 or a 2x6. So I just want to make sure I mention that before we go on to the next step. And again, I'm going to build this pen here out of 12 gauge wire. We won't be using no braces in the middle. Only braces we use is in the corner, and I just cut that out of some scrap wood that I've got laying around under the saw. Alright guys, here's how the cage is coming along. I've got my piece of wire over the top, and I just tacked on the back piece of wire, but I haven't spliced none of it together or anything. And I just want to take a minute and show you where I'm at and go over a couple of things. Now, the wire that I used in the last dome pen video was 14 gauge wire. Now what I'm working with here today is 12 gauge wire. And 12 gauge wire is a lot more stout and more sturdy than the 14 gauge wire. And I want to show you what I'm going to put this 12 gauge wire together with. What I'm going to be using to put this 12 gauge wire together is these hog rings. And they make a special kind of pliers that are kind of have offset jaws that you can buy to clamp these together. And when a few years back when I bought some of these, I bought a pair of them, and they was absolute junk, and they didn't last no time. They didn't even make it through one day, and I broke them in half. They was just together with a little cheap rivet through the middle. And what I use to put them on is these old yellow handle electrical wire snips. And see, they got a good wide grip. And these right here works perfect. You just put them in there, hold them, and squeeze it to them. Then you can re-squeeze them, bend them, twist them, whatever you want to do. And that's what I use to put these on with. And they work out great. I wouldn't waste the money on, if you got a pair of these, I sure wouldn't waste the money on those pliers that they make for these hog rings. But that's what I'm going to use to splice this wire together. I'm actually not splicing it together. I'm just using these hog rings to more or less tack it together. And in my last video, I went up the sides like this here, and I would snip it, and I'd take that end and twist it around and splice it together by bending these little ends around. And you can do this 12 gauge wire that way also, but this 12 gauge wire is a lot more thicker, and it's not near as flexible as the 14 gauge wire. So it's going to be a little harder to do than what that 14 gauge stuff is. But since I already have these clips, I'm just going to use them, and it'll speed up the process a lot faster also. As I put these hog rings on, I come up so far on one side, and then I'll stop, and I'll go to the other side and come up to the, begin at the same place and come up and stop at the same place. And as I'm tightening this up with the side piece, you'll notice your main top piece up here will start lowering down as you pull it out of here. When you first put this on, your top piece will be a little bit higher until you start tightening it up and pulling it even. And then when I get up here, when I get this down to about even with this, the top part, I just put a little ring here I don't tighten it all the way down. And then I try to even it up, and how I try to keep it even is I come out here and I count these. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I could put a hog ring right here. But before I would do that, I would come over here and make sure I could do the same over here. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I might need to move it up and down just a speck to make it even, and I'd put a hog ring there. Alright guys, I've got this side completely on now. Got it leveled up pretty much, best I can get it. And I want to mention, wherever I put a hog ring on this side, I try to do the same to the other side, so that way I can keep it pretty well even. And I always start on one side and come so far up till it starts pulling the top part down, and then I'll come over here to the other side and come up the same distance and stop at the same place as stopped on the other side, and then I'll start trying to make sure my top part's level and start clipping head in too to try to make it even. And I got it pretty well even. Nice, gonna have a nice dome effect to it when I get done with it. And same thing up around the top. Wherever I put a hog ring on this side, I try to do the same to the other side, and that keeps it pretty well even. When I come to other sides now on my wire, I even it up the same as I did on the other side. And then when I come up this, putting these hog rings on to hold my wire together, I come up to where I stopped on the other side. You'll be able to look down the line of welds and tell where you stopped at over there. And I try to make sure this is going to be even just like it is on the other end. And that kind of helps guide me over here and lets me know where to stop at on this end also. Now I'll move to the other side, and I'll start up that side and do the same thing. And then I'll work my way around the top. Alright guys, I got this pen completely put together now. And I want to mention something that'll help you out. Once you get one end on and get it fully put together and ready to go, the other end is a lot easier to put on, because once you come to the opposite side, you can just follow what you did on the other end, and it'll go together much quicker for you and line up pretty much the same as it did on the opposite end. Like wherever you put a hog ring at down there on the other end, when you come to this end, just try to put it at the same place that you did on the other end, and it'll come together for you a lot quicker. That's just a little quick tip I want to mention. And again, I'm nailing my wire to the frame with the same thing that I did in my other pen, these little U-shaped staples. Now you notice on the ends of these, they're kind of wide, and I take my hammer and peck them together a little bit, make them closer together before I drive them in, so that way they go in and they don't push open when I'm trying to hammer. Sometimes if you don't watch, they'll go in kind of cockeyed, or you'll hit them and they kind of spread open. But if you tack that together a little bit more before you hit it, you can drive it straight in just like a nail. And these work out really good. I use them on all my pens, and I have really good luck out of them. I got this cage pretty much done. Once again, this is made out of 12 gauge wire, and I just then put my roost pole in here, and again I'm using a 2x2 treated roost, and I set it about 14 inches off the ground, and I nailed it on with those U-shaped staples, and as you can see it here, I just come over the wire into the roost pole, and it's in there nice and solid, and the only way that's coming out is if it rots out. And also I put my roost pole again about 14 inches off the ground, and that gives my rooster plenty of room to hop up there and pop his wings, flap his wings without hitting or beating them and breaking his feathers up, hitting this wire. When putting a roost pole in a pen, you don't want to put it too high up because your roosters will break and wear their wing feathers out. But when they jump up on the roost and they want to flap their wings and they're feeling good, they will wear their wing feathers out hitting this wire. So that's something to keep in mind. Don't put your roost poles too high up. And some people even puts a roost pole just on top of the frame, and I've done that in the past, but I like mine a little bit higher up because sometimes it will rain for a week to 2 weeks straight here, and everything gets saturated and muddy, and I don't want my roosters roosting down low and getting their tail feathers muddy or anything like that. So I set mine kind of up off the ground. Point something else out about this wire that might save you chickens from wearing their breast feathers out. See how this weld goes across, all the way across. You want this weld going across, you want it on the inside, and this weld coming down, you want it to be on the outside. Now, I built pens in the past and not paid that much attention, and I've learned the hard way. If you got a real active chicken and this wire's flipped around the other way, he will pace back and forth, and where there's a hump here, see, there's a hump where that weld runs down, he will flat out wear his breast feathers out. And when it's flipped in the other way, it's a little bit more smoother, and chickens don't seem to wear their breast feathers out as much. But if you got this wire flipped around to where these welds like this running downward are on the inside, and the rooster is pacing back and forth, he will flat wear his breast feathers out on that wire if you're not careful. I built some a few years ago and didn't pay it no attention, and some of them little brown reds are real active, and they flat wore their breast feathers plumb off, pacing back and forth, rubbing against this wire right here. Alright guys, when I nail my wire on, I try to make it even on the front and back and on both sides. Like here, I just pulled it down right here, and then on the other side I did the same thing, and I nailed the other side the same way I do here. I go all the way across this, nailed it in 2 different places with these horseshoe shaped staples. They work very well, and I go all the way around this frame, around the sides, the front, both sides, front and back, and I nail it in 2 different places, and it makes this wire nice and tight. And when I got this out on the yard and I want to grab a hold of it and move it, I can move it wherever I need to and pull on it, and I don't have to worry about the wire popping apart or pulling it and pulling the nails out of the frame or anything like that. It holds up very well, and once you get your pen built and your wire tacked on like I'm showing you right here, it'll hold up well for years to come. Alright guys, here's a final look at my pen before I take it out back and put it in the chicken yard. I just put my cover on it. I got my roost pole in it, and I've got my wire on there nice and tightly. And all the wire on this pen, once again, is made out of 12 gauge wire. It's a lot more stouter and will last twice as long as 14 gauge wire. And I just wanted to make a video out of it because it is different than the last video. I know it's similar to it, but it is quite a bit different also. We use completely different material. We used stouter wire, different type of lumber, and we also put our wire together totally different than what we did in the last video. And plus this pen's a little bit smaller built than the last one, so I just want to go ahead and make a video out of it, and I hope this video will be interesting and helpful to some of you guys out there. And I just want to say, if you got 12 gauge wire, once you build your frame and you cut out your front and back and you overlap and you got these hog ring clips, you can put these pins together pretty quick. It don't take much time at all. And once you get them together nice and tightly, these pins will hold up very well for you for years to come. You don't have to worry about putting a brace in them or anything like that. And this wire is stout, and it holds up well. And I want to mention something else here on the corner. On the last video, I cut all of this and twisted around the frame and bent it in. But on the 12 gauge pins that I build, I always just leave the corners just like this. There ain't no need in it. Once you put your hog ring clips on here, it tightens it up, and you can leave your edges sticking out just like this. I got several built like this, and I don't have no problems with running into them or getting snagged on them or anything like that. If you want to trim them in, you can, but it's going to be much harder to bend and twist than what 14 gauge wire is. So I just want to go ahead and wrap this video up, guys. I thank each and every one of you guys that like, comment, and subscribe. The more you like and comment and subscribe, the more motivation it gives me to try to make new gamefowl related videos. And in closing, I just hope this video was helpful and interesting to some of y'all out there. And until the next video, guys, I'll catch you later, and thanks for watching.